Okay, so we updated the opportunity schema, and it now has fields like start date, end date, term, amount, annualized subscription value. Now what we have to do is update the automation so that when an opportunity is closed won, it properly populates the contract fields. So let's go ahead and show you what currently happens, and then we'll make the changes. So if you remember from before, we had a flow that generates a renewal that would update the amount and the close date. So this is all fine, but what we need to do is we need to be adding in an end date and a term for the renewal. And we also want the amount to match the previous opportunity's annualized amount. And the last thing would be we also want the renewal close date to line up with the contract start date, or maybe a few months prior, but you want it to line up to that date based on the contract end date rather than just projecting it a year into advance, because it may be a multi-year deal. So I'm going to delete this, and we're going to go to the flow and then get started fixing it. So if we just go here, and if we go to our flow, I'm going to open it and then go ahead and start making the changes. Okay, so we have gone ahead and found the flow. So what it's doing is it triggers when an opportunity is closed won, it creates a renewal opportunity, and it updates the original opportunity to link it to the renewal. So we need to make a couple changes. We want to basically project another annualized renewal in the future. So we're going to project a 12-month term contract in the future using the annualized amount from the previous deal. And we want the close date and the contract start date to be 1 day after the end date from the renewal. So we're going to add a couple fields here. So the first would be contract term. We're just going to add 12 months onto this. The second would be we want to add contract start date, and we need to create a formula from this. So I have another formula here called 1 year from close date. We're going to adjust that first, and then we're going to come back to this. We actually want this to be called 1 day after contract end date. And instead of adding a year, we're going to add 1 day after the previous contract end date. So we have to refer to contract end date. And we're going to have to go ahead and save this. And we're going to use that here. 1 day after contract end date. Oh, it's not letting me change the name, is it? There we go. Okay, for some reason it's not letting me change the label, but we'll just go with that. Okay, so you know what? That's bothering me. I'm actually going to just make a new formula field, and then we can just keep this one and then delete it. So that can stay as is. We're just gonna make a new resource. It's gonna be a formula. We'll call it 1 day after contract end date. It's gonna return a date, and there we go. So this one I'll set back to being 1 year, even though it doesn't really matter. I'm just a little OCD here. Okay, so we're gonna use 1 day after contract end date in both of these cases. Okay, so the renewal should be fixed now. The close date's now happening 1 day after end date. The term is 12, and the start date is 1 day after the contract end date. The last thing I want to change is actually the amount. So rather than just using the whole term amount, I want to use the annualized amount. So we're going to go and find the annual subscription value and use that field instead. So let's save this and activate it. And if we go back to this opportunity, we'll take you through the flow again, and the data points should be correct this time. So if I mark this as closed won, we should have a renewal that is set to 2026, which is when the other contract ends. And it's a 1-year deal using the annualized amount from the previous value. The start date and the close date line up, and it's linked to the previous opportunity. So this is what we want to do. The one thing that I also want to change here before we move on is just this revenue movement amount formula field. That was also something that we changed in setup. So if you go to opportunity, and let's just go to that formula field. So revenue movement amount, and I also want to look at this revenue movement type as well. So let's edit this, and we actually want to, rather than compare the amounts, we want to compare the annualized amounts. And the reason for this is because this doesn't take into account the term of the contract, while an annualized amount does. So we're going to insert the annual subscription value in place of the amount field. So wherever you see amount, I'm just going to replace it. And this should solve for that issue. So we can now compare multi-year deals with a 6-month contract, no problem. And we're going to do the same for this one, which has references to the amount field as well. So we're going to take this out, and I think that should do it. Don't see it anywhere else. Okay. So we should be good here now as well. Those upsell and downsell calculation formulas. I don't think I have any other formulas in here. Maybe just double check. Revenue movement, days to close, contract end date, movement, renewal amount, that might be it. Annual subscription value. I think this one we need to change as well. So I'm going to change this to annualized value as well to make sure it's incorporating the term of the renewal. This is just cleaning up the fields we created with the previous system. But yeah, when we refresh the page, you should actually be seeing different values. The revenue movement's less because the amount that got booked here is, when you annualize it, is less than the total amount of the contract. So that's very important. And here, yeah, I mean, there's nothing much really to see here, but just making sure that our new automation, or our old automation, lines up with our new schema here. So that's what this video is all about. Apologies if that got a little confusing, but it is a complicated topic. So that's one of the reasons why. But I'll try to build out some reporting at the end, so hopefully this can all make sense. But I will leave this at that, so thank you for watching.